Hey guys, when I talk about us making things easy, they really are pretty easy. You might be all thumbs in the beginning getting used to steps, but it's actually easy to do these things. So for instance, somebody was wondering, how do we get the material from here in Excel, right? Where we have our header row with all of our variables and our first row, not original content, but whatever we deem the first row. And we want to take that and put that in a format that we can import right away into here, because obviously this isn't a different format, right? And if you go downloading this file, you export it as Excel to see what it looks like, then the file you get looks like this. So you've got title, code, and value, right? Which is title, code, and value. That's those three columns, right? So then you've got a reference title, like whatever we want it to be called, which may as well be the same thing as this, right? So here's our token that we're going to use. And just to remember what the name is for ease, it's copied. It's right here. It's the same. Okay. Like we could really call these anything we want because it's for our own reference. But for our own reference, let's just call it the same thing as the variable code, right? And then the value is whatever the default value is, right? Whatever the website is supposed to be using, for the different values, wherever it is that we're using them, right? Like this is internal anchor one for whatever reason this happens. Fast Garage Doors Repair.com. So I could do it this way, right? Fast Garage Doors Repair, right? Bap, bap. And that way the the anchor text goes with the URL. By the way, that'll update. Once in a while, it may just hang. If I want to verify that dated, first of all, which number is it? It's number 22. If I just like refresh the page or something, I'll be able to see because it says code updated. That's just a funny small glitch. 22. See, there it is. All right. So anyway, how do we get the format changed, right? Let me just show you. So it's pretty easy. Okay, take a look. Like I said, this is really the same as that token, and then this is going to be that first line of code, right? So let's just start with that. It's like this. Take from there to the bottom of here. Control copy. Copy it. Now, we could do this on a new tab if we want, because we're going to go ahead and do this work somewhere. Right click and paste it this way with the transpose button. And guess what? That already took care of two of our columns, right? That already gave us the first and the second. Let me close in that column width a bit. 40. It's just too big to read. Okay. So now all we need is another one of these, but that is in token form, right? So how about doing it like this? I'm going to insert 1, 2, 3 real quick. Insert. You'll see where we're going with this. I'm going to control copy this, paste it here again. Now I need to put the beginning and the end for that whole line. Ready? I'm going to do like that for the token and then close it out with that. Drag it down. However many. Not that many. Drag it down. And there's lots of ways to do things like this. This is just one of them, right? And then in our toolbar, we've got something called articles that we're going to use to concatenate, right? So if I select that, then I can put two of these together. And then if I select it again, I can put the remaining two together. And it'll put all three of them together that way. And then I can just replace all spaces with no space, because you'll see it has spaces. Okay? For those of you that are just wondering how you can do it manually anyway, like if you don't have the emoji toolbar, insert, watch. I'll do it like this. This equals that ampersand, meaning and that, and that. Copy, right? Now keep in mind that's still a formula, really. This is the reality of what's here, right? But first, I want to drag it because I need to get the whole thing, okay? And I got it all. Now, secondly, I got to convert it. These should not be formulas like that. These need to be the values, because we're going to delete the source information, and that'll ruin this if it's still, watch. See, now it doesn't know where it gets this information from because it's still formulas. So let's put it back. We're going to copy this and then paste it right in place as values only, right? Values. There. Now these are values. So we can get rid of the source. Delete. and get rid of all those spaces, delete. And the final thing we have to do, insert, is our title row, right? Title, code, value. I might type it, and then maybe bold it. I do that. You don't need to. It won't affect anything. So there you go. See that? Now, as long as that's on the right sheet tab name, which may matter when you import it, I think it does. So, you know, if you're in doubt as to what the tab name should be, right, then just simply export one that exists and look at the tab name. Like if I export it right now and open it, oops, yep, bam. All right, the tab name is simply global variables with a capital G and a capital V, 2 words, right? A couple of clicks and you can copy that, right? Well, there you go. But it should just be the one tab, okay? So be aware that when you get this thing done, copy it to a final file or replace the final file, like the one I just downloaded, right? Since it's here, then I could just overwrite it, couldn't I? I could like literally delete this information, since that's the right tab name, come here and copy in those 3 and save it, right? Now this is totally ready to import. And when I import, it'll overwrite the old global variables. It'll overwrite all of them. It'll dump the load and put the new ones in. Okay? There you go. That's really all there is to it. Okay? When you do something like that a couple of times, you get used to it, right? Now, reality check is we went so much further. Varsheet, she won. Okay. When we get this whole thing done, it's going to have maybe a bunch of companies in here. It's going to have like company, address line 1, phone, email. Usually you want to do that. Usually you'll do that. Website title, all that kind of thing. So then what you'll do with that list is you'll say, I want to bulk base GV generator. And it will literally create a new file for each company. And it'll create those base GV columns from this thing. So if this is like a bulk global variable output file with a bunch of rows, then it will create a bunch of unique base global variable files that are all formatted and ready to upload to all those different websites, okay? So just so you know, that can be done, all right? Yeah, I mean, we got stuff to cover, and then there are a number of things that have been covered before. We got to kind of like rehash them in a modern way. But there you go, just making the point that all this stuff is not so hard. Just a matter of getting used to it. Totally worth getting your hands on this and starting to play with it and getting it down. Like Photoshop or anything else, you kind of learn a tool at a time, play with it a bit, make sure you're good at it, go for the next tool. Get good at that, go for the next tool, get good at that. Pretty soon you become a master of this entire arena. And the more you know, the more you can put the tools together. Like if you can use one tool in Photoshop like paint, well, you could paint a thin line, you could paint thicker lines, you could make them different colors. You know, maybe you can learn opacity then. And then that way you can create lines that are more transparent or more opaque. But then you might learn the eraser tool, and now you can use painting and erasing in combinations to create some interesting effects, especially if you're also using opacity. That's 3 different tools now, right? The more tools you learn, of course, the more multitudes of combinations of things you can do. Same holds true for this T2HC concept with mass website generation with a Varsheet installer, the website installer, software installer. You can absolutely, kids, you can absolutely do huge, interesting projects as you get to know these tools. Just letting you know. Okay.